Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Wednesday morning, folks, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Ellen calling in from the tropical island of St. Bart's, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Dennis, coming to you from high atop the Homewood Suites Hotel in beautiful downtown Raleigh, North Carolina. Since you're the one who tuned in, you know you're listening to Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers
And Sister.
That's right, Ellen. Welcome, everybody, to episode 472. First of all, before we get started today, we've had such incredible comments about last week's show with Bruce Rodgers. And for people who have heard it, you know how great it was. And if you haven't heard it, go back there and check it out. Again, that was episode 471. And Bruce was just fantastic. He's just, what a great guy. Are you as jonesed about it as I was?
Yes, definitely. And we do a lot of Super Bowl coverage on Live Design Online. And I had some questions out to Bruce, and he got back to me about the same time as this was all happening. So in one of the lead stories in yesterday's Live Design Online newsletter that went out and on our homepage is a Q&A about Bruce that I called Tribal Magic, about Bruce and the tribe doing all like his whole process, you know, about who he's working with and how it all comes together and all the people involved. And it's a really interesting sort of backstage story. So after you listen to Light Talk with Bruce, take a look at Live Design Online. He's great. He is really amazing. It's just, you know, listening to him, it's like he's done this show for the Super Bowl halftime show for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And this, I guess whoever said it really well. There've been a lot of lighting designers, a lot of different, you know, performers. Obviously, the whole scene keeps changing, but one production designer the whole time.
Pretty much.
For the past 20 years, which is amazing.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because we were actually, during our discussion, we were talking about Landman, which is that great series that's, I believe it's on Paramount Plus. And Lori and I started watching it. And I must tell you, it's very interesting because Bruce was talking about how he sort of connected with the main character. I guess it was Billy Bob Thornton character, who's brilliant in the show, by the way. And if you haven't seen the show, you need to see the show. It's really a fantastic show. But after watching the season, you know, the first season, it's like, wow, Bruce, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So I can imagine that he's been through a lot of things, you know, coming from Odessa and then coming into showbiz. That is very, very interesting. And we got to get him to write this book. Ellen, it's up to you. I think you would be a great co-author on it or editor or whatever you could do.
Yeah.
But I think it would be awesome to get him to write an autobiography.
Well, you have 20 chapters right off the bat.
Right.
That's true.
Amazing, right?
It was an exceptional show, certainly one of our best. It's interesting. I actually had a text that I received yesterday from Eric Siegel, who did an interview conversation with us. Put a Baby on That Pigeon was the title. And Eric said, I just listened to the podcast with Bruce. Such heart and such great questions. His story about the South Central Town Hall took me back on a rocket and brought a lump to my throat. A fantastic episode.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah, and I'm actually working on a project right now in Raleigh, and the gaffer and programmer who are with me also heard the show, and they were telling me how exceptional it was. It's certainly a show we could be proud of. I hope people who listen to this, who haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it because, as I said afterwards in talking with Bruce, he brought a heart and a humility and a natural quality to. He's truly a man of the people, and you don't get that with somebody that has the kind of extensive credits and accolades that this man has gotten over the years. It's pretty incredible.
Right.
And David, your choice of the title, Landman, for the episode.
Well, that was pretty simple.
But dead on in more ways than one.
I must tell you, there were like 5 or 6 titles that I had for that show that I was like going over And finally, I just
Are
said,
you kidding?
these other
We
titles.
could be doing sound bites from that show for years.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's definitely going to be a part of our Best of Light Talk series. Whenever we have an emergency and we can't do a show a week, I'll just replay that one along with our other great ones. So yeah, that's a real keeper. Before we get started with today's show, because we just have a regular show today, we're going to answer our listeners' questions today. We do have an announcement, and we're making a little change in our release date for Light Talk. We're no longer going to release the shows on Saturday morning. We're actually going to release them now on Wednesday mornings. And the reason why we're doing this is strictly because I need more time to edit the shows. And especially when we have guests, it's kind of hard, because what we do is we tape the show and we do a rough cut and we send it out to the guests to listen to. And if they have any changes they need to make or corrections, then it comes back to me. And to try to do that in 2 or 3 days before the show goes out is really difficult because we're all still working, whether we're retired or not, we still have other obligations.
You just gave away that it's not live.
We're barely alive.
No, we've never said it was live. We just welcome people the day they hear it. So from now on, Steve's going to be saying it is Wednesday morning and you are listening to Light Talk. But anyway, so that's a new change and we're all pretty excited about that.
So getting back to this intro, Dennis, where did you say you were?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
And what was the name of your hotel?
The Homewood Suites.
Ooh.
Now, does the Homewood Suites have that magic finger bed that you put the quarters in and you kind of vibrate you to sleep each night?
Silver dollars, Steve. Silver dollars.
Silver dollars.
They're up to silver dollars.
And I brought a whole bag of them.
By the way, they also take Doge coins or whatever the hell Trump's crypto shit is called. Whatever it's called, you can put that in the bed as well. So go for it.
Oh,
Stuff
man.
a dog in there.
I mean, the only people who are stupid enough to buy that shit are people who stay in places like the Homewood Suites. Sorry.
Oh, man, there's a class action lawsuit. Don't let Snoop know you said that.
I mean, it's not like a step above Days Inn or something like that.
I can see the letter now.
It's
The
actually
restraining order.
It's actually a lovely hotel. And
Okay, good.
when I was here
good.
to meet with these people to solicit the work and to talk to them about what needed to happen, they had put me in a Sheraton. Now you might have to cut this out because the Sheraton was a real shithole, and it was very expensive. And I told my lovely wife, I said, find me a place that's 1 block or 2 blocks from the studio so I can walk to work day. And she found this brand new Homewood Suites by Hilton that,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as you can see behind me in my living room, it's kind of like a witness protection program apartment.
Looks like something.
But I've got a kitchen, a living room, a bedroom, a big bathroom, and it's very
You know what it looks
reasonable.
like? It looks like the Crossroads Motel from Breaking Bad, where the crack house was. All the crack whores were hanging out there.
Yeah, what
There you
we're
go.
seeing, the glamour and the
glamour.
excitement of working in television.
That's
You're
right.
hilarious.
He gets paid a lot, but he gets crappy places.
That could be the name of your autobiography. Shithole hotels I've stayed in.
Last night, I ate in the hotel restaurant, and I didn't have anything extravagant, and I didn't have anything to drink, and it was $95 from my supper.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
Well, for Homewood Suites, I would think so.
It depends on what the supper was. He started with a little caviar.
He's in Raleigh, North Carolina.
This is the guy who has a yacht. I'll have the lobster and the steak.
I'm looking forward to supper with our friend Bobby Harrell this week, who lives in Raleigh. He's promising to take me to a very good barbecue restaurant.
What the hell is he doing in Raleigh? That's
he
a whole
moved
other
there.
story we're going to get to.
No, it's
Yeah, okay.
whatever.
There you go.
You cannot go wrong with Bobby Harrell and barbecues.
Exactly.
This man's an encyclopedia.
Okay, let's get started. Dennis, you have the first question of the day.
The first question comes from a young designer in Salt Lake City who asks, we've all heard of writer's block, but what about designer's block? How do you find creative inspiration when you're struggling and the muse is out to lunch? When you're young, I think that sort of thing happens a lot. And especially if you're just in college and grad school, I can remember myself trying to think of what's going to inspire me to do some sort of creative, wonderful design And obviously, teachers, instructors, the professors will always say, well, go to the story, go to the script. These are all the things that we use to guide us when we're doing a design. But very often it does happen. And if you've been doing it for decades, you can always think back to other things you've done and how you want to present the design and the look and the atmosphere of the show to the audience, to the viewer. It was very interesting, and I don't want to keep harping about Bruce Rodgers, but just listening to that show and listening to how he was inspired by different things to create the various halftime shows, it's worth a listen just to understand how this production designer thinks. Even if you remember, we were asking about how he came up with the idea of putting people in costumes to resemble the countryside and the sugarcane fields for the Bad Bunny halftime show. And Bruce even admitted he didn't know what to do. And one of the things he said was he thought to himself, what would his friend Michael Curry do? Michael was a puppeteer who did shows like The Lion King and other things. And he thought about what a puppeteer would do. And then that led to other ideas on formulating the grass people. Even myself, I'm doing a reimagining of Nutcracker, the ballet that everybody sees at Christmas time, for a ballet company in Pennsylvania that's going to launch in a couple of weeks. And they've been doing the Nutcracker for 50 years. It's a real crowd pleaser. It's a show I designed for them, both scenery and lighting, a decade ago. And they're going to do it as a reimagined show called The Cracked Nut. And they're going to put it in the 1940s in New York City. And they have music from Glenn Miller. It's the same music, but rearranged by Glenn Miller and other artists and composers who've taken the original classical music and rearranged it. But
isn't Glenn Miller dead?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But the music isn't.
Oh, he wrote this in the 40s.
Oh, yeah.
This was composed in the 40s.
This is all music that was composed. And
Okay.
Where in Pennsylvania is
it's
this?
going to be in Scranton. It's Ballet Theater in northeastern Pennsylvania, Ballet Theater of Scranton School.
Huh. Okay.
And every couple of years, they'll do a brand new ballet, and I've designed them for them. But, they want to have it very different. And for example, the main scene that normally takes place in the Christmas living room is going to take place in a New York ballroom, a dance hall. And the music is at that point by Glenn Miller. So there'll be a mirrored ball that flies in, and there'll be, how did I get inspiration? I saw a lovely, lovely musical called Ballroom many years ago that I think Theron had designed, and it was so beautiful, and I still remember some of the tricks that she had used. There's nothing wrong with stealing from the best, but one of the things, and the point of this story is, I wanted to do something different for the fight scene. Traditionally, what I had done with the Mouse King and the mice who fight the toy soldiers and the Nutcracker, just basically in the show with ballyhoos and strobes, and just to create the sense of chaos that exists. And they wanted to do something like that, but not have it as colorful and as many as theatrical lighting, if you will. The backdrop is going to be a New York City alleyway with the Brooklyn Bridge in the background and fire escapes all around. And the artistic director said to me it'd be kind of neat if it was like the West Side Story fight in the back alley after the dance sequence. So I was like trying to say, what do I do that's different? How do I make it look so it's not with theatrical fixtures? And I was kind of not beat my head against the wall, but trying to find that muse for creativity. And I was doing a job a week ago, and I was looking on stage, and my stage hands had, those LED headlamps that everybody wears around some of them are around their forehead, some of them are on top of their head. But the two stagehands were like fighting with each other with what's called a Titan tubes, which is a broadcast fixture that we use that looks kind of like a lightsaber. And I thought, that's kind of funny that, these guys are wearing these headlamps and fighting. And because the ballet is in Scranton, where it was the anthracite coal capital of the world, I thought it'd be neat to kind of simulate what a miner would have on his head in an alley in Scranton, Pennsylvania in the 30s and 40s. So I convinced them to, the whole scene's going to be in the alleyway, but it's going to be in darkness, and all of the toy soldiers are going to have LED headlamps on that we've purchased. And the mice are going to have LED gloves that have a LED on each finger, so that essentially the whole lighting for the whole fight between the mice and the rats and the toy soldiers is going to be LEDs on their bodies. And
very clever.
Yeah, I think it'll be exciting. It'll be certainly different, and we'll probably augment it with something, probably some fire escape gobos or something, or nothing. Maybe darkness will be better. But again, how do you find that inspiration? Just look around. I was just inspired by watching a couple of guys playing around in a studio with a headlamp on their heads. I think as young students, we were always taught, go to the great masters, look at Turner, look at Rembrandt, look at the way artists had imagined lights and lighting on their drawings and on the artwork. I think if we just look around at life, would be inspired by interesting things that we wouldn't normally consider are theatrical.
It's funny you say that because Paul Gregory, who's one of my favorite architectural lighting designers, used to say that he would get inspired by driving through the countryside and seeing, sunlight filtering through the splintered boards on an old barn, or, the way the dew sort of sparkles in morning sunlight, and things that are not theatrical at all, but that really can inspire you. The other thing I always tell young designers, for inspiration, is go to the library and go to the museum and just look at images. Our friend Wendell Harrington always refers to herself as an image junkie, and now I guess she saves them digitally, but she used to just get magazines and rip out images and store them for future research and inspiration. So just look at everything you can.
I think observation is the key. I mean, you nailed it.
Yep.
Ellen, it's just seeing what's around and using what the world presents to us and reimagining it in a theatrical, creative way.
Now, I was thinking about your production, and, I think if I were going to do it, I would also consider doing it as a black and white show.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
David's holding his hand up. He's got
No,
asking for
this
permission.
is a black and white show. I've heard that for, I don't know, ever since I started to hear English. Let's do a black and white show. There's no such thing as a black and white show.
I don't know. You can come pretty close.
Sure there is.
No. How do you do a black and white show? You got to do black and white makeup? Is that what you're going to do?
Well, no.
There's never a black and white show. There are many tones of white, and there's many tones of black.
Right. But the set could be black and white, and the costumes could be black and white.
And the lighting could be inspired by Jennifer Tipton, who never uses color.
And it could be very sharply black and white, there's cartoon books that are like that, like those graphic novel cartoony things that are all sharp black and whites.
Dennis said something that I have to correct because that is such a misconception of Jennifer's lighting. He says she never uses color.
Well, she uses very light shades of color,
temperature
but it's
color.
blues.
It's color. And she also runs her fixtures sometimes at 50%, which is like putting an 02 or an 04 into it.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. Sorry,
There's
Jennifer.
color in everything, I just how can we make the show black and white? I said, well, I don't know, but you can make it monochromatic by taking R80 and just bathing the stage in R80, but that's not going to help the show any.
That's blue.
Never underestimate the power of a little bit of pale yellow when you're trying to do a black and white show. We have a black and white theater in Dallas, and those guys do incredible work. I mean, I swear, you go there and it's like you're watching black and white television.
Wow.
They do a great job.
And why would you do that?
Why?
Yeah, what's stylistically, why would someone
They
do
do
that?
a lot of 30s and 40s detective film noir, Perry Mason murder mystery type shows. And so they've just latched on to that kind of period of time and a presentation.
It's their shtick, David. It's their shtick.
It's a shtick. And speaking of black and white, Ellen has the next question. It has a lot to do with color.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Alice from Chicago wonders if the script calls for moonlight to shine softly through a stage-right window onto the polished hardwood floor. How do I decide what color the moonlight is? Before we go to you guys who are the experts, I have a little tale to tell. Alice from Chicago. Beverly Emmons and Clifton Taylor, who are two wonderful lighting designers who think a lot about color, used to do a color lecture as part of our Broadway lighting master classes. And it was an incredible color lecture. And part of what Beverly did, she borrowed costumes from The Heiress, which was a wonderful Broadway show she lit, which happened to have moonlight shining in off of Washington Square into one of those beautiful period townhouses. And she said something really incredible. She said, I don't think the moonlight is white. She said, but as long as it is the palest color on the stage at that time, everybody will read it as moonlight. So what do you think about that for Alice?
True.
Well, that goes back
true.
to what we were saying about Jennifer Tipton. I mean, her favorite, one of her favorite colors is Roscoe 3202, which is Roscoe Full Blue CTB. And
Right.
It would do that sort of effect. But it's all relative to what else is going on the set. I mean,
Right.
David's right. A light blue can be perceived as white against other saturated colors.
Right, but it could also be pale yellow. The moon doesn't have to necessarily be white.
I think what Beverly's saying is, as a lighting designer, you set up the rules, and then you stay with your rules through the entire evening of production. And as long as you don't break them, the audience accepts what you're doing.
Right.
And to answer Ellen's question, it's whatever the moment calls for. That's what color you use. And it just supports everything that my brothers and sisters said, is that you can almost use any color, but it's got to support what's happening in the moment. Because technically, moonlight is white light. Okay? It is. It's just a reflection of the sun hitting the moon. Moon's a big reflector. It reflects the wavelengths back. And because it's so much weaker, because it's a reflector and not the actual source, you see it more dimly. So, there's this romantic notion that moonlight's blue. And as a matter of fact, there was an old Roscoline color called moonlight blue. And a lot of students would say, well, I'm doing moonlight. It's got to be moonlight blue.
Oh, I thought that was scene change blue.
Yeah, right.
It's either nighttime or a scene change, guys.
That's right. That's a scene change, a downlight, blue downlight. So anyway, but that's R80.
It also depends on where you are. Is that stage right window in a New York apartment? Is that stage right window in a Long Beach beach house with the light coming off the ocean?
Right.
Is it in a ranch somewhere in Montana? There's, also the environment has a lot to do with what that blue is.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be blue.
It doesn't have to be blue. It can be white.
If it's in New York, it clearly has a red flashing neon, drug.
Well, then that's not moonlight.
It's cutting through the moonlight before it gets to your floor.
Also, is that stage right window in Dracula's Castle, or is that stage right window in Guys and Dolls, or in West Side Story?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I speak of Guys and Dolls and versus something like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or whatever. It's going to be a different color light, but it's the same color moonlight. Because in theater, we're not creating reality all the time. Hopefully very little, but sometimes we try to recreate reality, but that's kind of boring most of the time. But we use color in a moonlight to set the mood. And if there's a moment where you have two lovers sitting on the bed and you ISO down to them on like a 30 count or something like that, and just the moonlight's coming in over their right shoulders as they look into each other's eyes, you may want to go a little. Oh, I know. I'm waxing poetic, darling.
And says, are you going to eat that biscuit?
You may want to go with something a little more romantic, right?
Right.
So
Oh,
anyway,
that's
okay,
sweet.
okay. So
Well, David, you have the next question.
I have the next question.
and
now
they're not romantic.
This is
He's
something that's
not-
not romantic, and it's something
Right.
that's totally different. Jonathan in Phoenix writes, I am depressed. I am a
This show's going off the rails.
There's no moonlight hitting my bed right now. I'm really
Aw.
depressed. Okay. I am depressed. I am a professional designer who has designed many regional shows. However, I never get mentioned in any reviews. What the F? Is my lighting that bland? What do I need to do to get mentioned? How the hell will I ever get a Broadway show? Should I just give up and become a coder? Yes. No, I would say that. Jonathan, okay. Flip a chair, my brother. We have a few thoughts for you here. First of all, you're not bland. If your lighting were any more subtle, it would qualify for witness protection. That's not failure. That's being a professional lighting designer. Remember, lighting designers only get mentioned in reviews when something goes catastrophically wrong. If a critic mentions your name in a review, it usually means it was so dark that someone fell into the pit, a cue fired like it was programmed by a crack addict, or the audience thought that the 30-minute fade to black cue was caused by the building slowly losing power due to a nuclear reactor meltdown. So congratulations, Jonathan. Your lighting is just too good to be noticed. And speaking of theater critics, it is important to remember that most critics are either failed journalism students or washed-up theater junkies who are a lot more interested in that cute ingenue or handsome ballet dancer. They know as much about the technical elements of a show as a rabid blind squirrel. But if you're determined to get mentioned, here are a few strategies. Program a cue stack so aggressive it triggers an uncontrollable PTSD response in the stage manager. Or blind the critic. Just put a single bad boy at full and aim it directly at the reviewer's retinas. You'll get mentioned, all right, possibly in the police report. As for Broadway, reviews mean bupkis. Half the people designing there get hired because they once shared an Uber or a few drinks with the producer or director. And should you give it all up and become a coder? Absolutely not. Coders don't get mentioned either. They just get blamed when the ticketing website crashes on opening night. So relax, Jonathan. Your lighting isn't bland. It's just undetectable by morons. Not being mentioned is actually the highest compliment a lighting designer can get, which in our business is gold. What do you all think?
I'm reminded of a review I had once from an off-Broadway show I did. It was a show called My Old Friends, and it starred King Donovan and Imogene Coca about old actors and actresses in a rest home in New York. It was actually a pretty good show. It had music to it and all that. But point of the fact is, there was a review that came out in one of the, not in the New York Times, one of the community newspapers. And it said, the lighting was by Dennis Size. And hopefully in his next show, his lights will be focused on the stage.
Damn. Snap. End of scene.
It wasn't the opening night because I was at the opening night, but I called up the head electrician the next day when I read this review. I said, WTF, what's going on? What was that all about? Oh, when they were opening the curtain at one point, it caught one of the lights on the first electric and it wasn't tightened enough and it spun it around and it shot out into the audience.
Oh, no.
And I said, are you kidding me? You couldn't turn it off? You could. And apparently it was focused right on this reviewer who objected to being lit during the show.
Oh, dear.
But you're right, David. I mean, it's nice if they say, the scenery was by, Joe Blow and the lighting was by Bob Smith and the costumes were by so-and-so. But there's no obligation to mention, hyperbole, good, bad, indifferent. But it's nice. A reviewer should mention the creative team involved.
At one point they were the designers maybe 829 were lobbying the papers in New York to at least include that list. Like there used to be a little box
Right, at
or
the
like a
top of the
little
review,
thing at
right.
the top, and
Yeah.
then they stopped because of space, and the designers were not happy. I agree with you. I think they should at least get listed in that box. And I also think that there's a way to educate the critics. They're voting on the Tonys. Don't the critics? Do the critics vote? Yeah, they must be Tony voters. So they should know what they're looking at. How do you vote for best lighting if you don't really know what you're looking at?
Well, how do you give a Tony to a lighting designer, and she shall remain nameless, but she's standing backstage near the fly rail and going, "Hi, I'm Madam X, and I got a Tony." They didn't even give them time on stage.
Right. It's terrible. I know, that's terrible. That's another story. And in live design this week, we brought up the other topic about, which is totally off topic with this, but about the projection designers still being stuck in the lighting and set categories. It happened again this week in London, the Olivier Award. So I think the critics, one time, many, many years ago, I was running a small theater, the Weathervane Theater in northern New Hampshire. And there was funding available from the New Hampshire Council on the Humanities. But it had to be something, not for the stage, something humanitarian, as they call it, literary or, whatever. And we actually did a program that was called 6 Plays in Search of a Critic, to quote Pirandello. And we actually got 6 local critics. And after they saw each show, they met with the director, the designers, an actor, and they really sort of got a little course on what they were looking at, what they saw, what the production process was. And it was really very illuminating for everybody on both sides of the table. And that worked really well. And I know that there have been other examples of things like that in regional theater where they try to get the critics a little more up to speed.
Well, I would say, Jonathan, be careful what you ask for. You don't need a critic's praise to validate your work. And the thing about that is once you get a really good review and you're going, oh, this critic, he or she really knows what they're talking about, and 2 months later they pan you, then you also have to give that review the same respect that you got that was nice about you. So I wouldn't worry about. Everyone wants a good review, but I wouldn't worry about it too much.
So what was your worst review, Steve?
My worst review is, I was doing a work, and it's about a group of people who live on a cliff over the ocean. And a tornado or hurricane comes through and wipes all their children and takes them out to sea, and they drown. And then the people at the end kind of walk into the ocean and die too.
Sounds happy.
Well, the review was, I don't understand this at all. And why was Steve Wood's Light so depressing?
It shows depressing.
Has he never seen a musical? I thought, what the hell do? Do you write the food review too? A, it's not a musical, and B, everybody dies. Jonathan, what's worse is sitting at Sardi's in New York and waiting for the newspaper to come out at, I don't know what it is, about 2 a.m. to see if you're going to get a review in the New York Times after your show opens.
Does that happen these days?
Yeah, they had the opening night parties there, and they would all wait, and then the press agent would come running in, and they'd either be smiling or they'd be hiding.
Does that still go on? Do they still do that? I mean,
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I just saw, totally off topic, when I was out in Chicago on a job 2 weeks ago, the movie Blue Moon with Ethan Hawke. I don't know if you saw it or not. It's about Lorenz Hart, Richard Rodgers, and Ethan Hawke was nominated for the Oscar. Well deserved. It's a movie worth seeing, but the whole movie takes place in Sardi's on the opening night of Oklahoma, and it should have been a stage play. Maybe it was, because that was the only set, was the bar at Sardi's and the stairway going upstairs, and the whole thing takes place almost in real time while Lorenz Hart is waiting for everybody to show up in Sardi's for the first musical that he didn't do with Richard Rodgers after having been the famed Rodgers and Hart. Anyway, movie worth seeing.
Do they get a good review?
Oklahoma? Yes.
The wind is still whistling down the plain all these years later.
Well, fortunately, they had a good second act opening.
Right.
You are listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers
and Sister.
And Light Talk today is sponsored by...
It's time for Tales from Texas. How many times have you been sitting in a production meeting staring at the set design on the big screen and thinking, man, that set really sucks? But of course you can't say that, because the moment you do, the room goes quiet. You know the silence I'm talking about, that long, uncomfortable HR might get involved silence. But sometimes you just have to say, hey, your set design really sucks. Now the trick is tone. So the question becomes, how can a lighting designer express disappointment without offending anybody? Now, hang on. I know what you're thinking. Steve, you're going to say use a British accent. In all fairness, I did say that a few months back, but I have since been thinking, let me suggest you use a Texas accent instead. Everything sounds friendlier in a Texas accent. A Texan can deliver the most devastating criticism you have ever heard, and somehow it still feels like helpful feedback. A Texan can insult you, shake your hand, and you will walk away thinking, wow, that was constructive. Now, we may not have a direct translation for sucks, but we do have a few phrases to get the point across. For example, the metaphor, well, that set would make a freight train take a dirt road, which is Texican for you're lost, and so is that set, buddy. Or if you want something a little more genteel, bless your heart, that set is sure unfortunate looking, which means that may be the worst thing I have seen since Super Bowl 13 and the drop. Or perhaps the nuclear option. Darling, that is just a mess. The design is so bad, we're not even going to critique it. You just need to quietly start over. And finally, for maximum effect, lean back in your chair, sip your coffee, look at the model for a long time, tip your Stetson a little lower over your eyes, and growl, just like Sam Elliott. Y'all might want to take another run at that set. That mess ain't going to fix itself. At which point, everyone in the room understands exactly what just happened. Meeting over, and no one's feelings got hurt. Well, not too much. This has been Tales from Texas, some of which might be true.
And now, back to Light Talk.
So, Murphy in Duluth writes, it's time to say goodbye to our VL 1100s. We have 12. What do you recommend in the same rough price point? Well, this took a while to figure this one out. I kind of looked up what an 1100 ran back when they were manufacturing it, and that price point was about $7,000 to $9,000, and that was for a profile with framing shutters.
Is that adjusted for inflation?
I think that adjusted for inflation, you're probably
like
up about
$12,000.
Well, the nice thing, though, is there's some really good lights out there in that $7,000 to $9,000 range. And if you just buy one less light and kick it up to about 10, you can really buy some nice lights. But I would say you cannot go wrong. If you look at Elation or Chauvet or Martin or Airton, they all have great lights. And I would, now it used to be a Texas company, High End Systems. They're now an ETC company, so I'm a little partial here. The Solar Frame 750, great light. The ETC Lone Star, great light. And if you just kick up your price a little bit, you can get that thing they call the Halcyon Silent for about $10,000. No fans, convection cooled. There are a lot of good lights that you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for. David, you have I know you like Vipers, and I know a Viper just beamed someone at the concert. I can't believe she's still alive.
Vipers. I'm using Ayrtons now, and I'm using Elations and a bunch of other stuff. But and actually, they still make Vipers, by the way. Martin still does make the Viper. That price range, I agree with you. I think the Lone Star, that's been out for many years now, but still a good light. The solar frames, which are like from the old, solar systems. That's from the old solar line of lights, which are, they're like glorified Lecos, but they're kind of cool lights and they work fine. But the bar's been raised quite a bit. I mean, these lights now have really good LED engines, most of them. So the color rendition's going to be pretty damn good. And a lot of them have a lot of bells and whistles in them.
Yeah, I mean, 15 years ago, you would be buying kind of questionably built products coming out of the Far East. But now the Far East is building some really good lights for all the major manufacturers around the world. So you can get a good light for a good price. What do you guys use, Dennis? I know you're always looking for a good, inexpensive profile fixture for studios.
Yeah, the main weapon of choice is the Lone Star. If I have a little more money, I'll go to the Ayrton Diablo, which is a little bit more expensive. But and Elation makes one also, same comparable line. But the price point on the Lone Star keeps it pretty down. And frankly, they're around 5,000, maybe 6,000 at the most. So it's a really economical fixture with a lot of bells and whistles that you can use. See, unfortunately, a lot of the studios that I'm working in, they don't have the money to go to the high fidelity. Because remember, there's two kinds of Lone Stars: the one with the lower CRI, and then the high fidelity one that's around 93 or 94. But again, you pay more for that. And as David says, the Sola Silent is really an excellent fixture, which I try to use those in the studios, but for the reasons of the noise factor. But they're like 8,000 or 9,000, and if you're buying, a number of fixtures, I mentioned a while ago when we redid the new Disney studio, there's got to be 500 or 600 moving lights in a couple of those studios, the 3 or 4 studios. That's a big amount of money, Granted, the savings in the long run pays for itself, but the upfront cost, it's pretty high. So you need to be a little more economical with your fixtures.
On the show I'm doing this week in LA, I'm using a bunch of the Ayrton Rivali profiles.
Good fixture.
Which are really nice fixtures. Yeah. I really enjoy using them. So, but there are just a lot of good lights out now.
There are. And Elation and Chauvet have really stepped up their game and comparable fixtures. The interesting thing, Steve, you talk about what do you replace your VL 1100s with? You didn't mention VariLite as any replacement fixture. What do they have that replaces their own fixture?
I think the 3600 is just an outstanding light. I've got a number of the 1600s here, and I have no complaints. The 36 is a little more powerful than I need in my theater. But I think Dancing with the Stars, I think we were talking with that young lady.
Hannah Kerman.
They use a ton of 1600s out there. But again, I'm trying to stay in that less than $9,000 range. I think the book on the 16, don't quote me, but I think the book is about 10.
It's incredible what fixtures cost, though. It's just outrageous.
I wouldn't be surprised if Roby doesn't have something in this price range that's really dynamite, too.
Let it rip, David.
Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you do decide to litigate, you will have to deal with me, Snoot from the Snoot Group. And don't get it twisted. Just because I married one of these losers does not mean I will go easy on you. So don't with me.
Light Talk, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California, the tropical paradise of St. Bart's, the Lone Star State, which is known for its chili con carne, and the city of Oaks, Raleigh, North Carolina, named after Sir Walter and famous for Southern barbecue.
Southern barbecue.
be sure to join us next week when we dive into more lighting shenanigans and serve up a fresh, piping hot casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Wednesday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye.